Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in the book of Nehemiah. I'm trying to get through chapters 6 and 7. Um, you remember their buddies, and I say that foolishly. They wasn't buddies; they're enemies who had made threats against them. First they mocked him, then they made threats. Well, check out their approach now um, to their opposition. All right. Uh, let's see. Chapter 6. It says, when Sanballat, Tobiah, Gishman the Arab, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had rebuilt the wall and that no gap was left in it, though at the time I had not installed the doors in the gates. So they're near completion of the wall. But then notice this, verse 2, Sanballat and Geshem sent a message. Come, let us meet together in the villages of the Ono Valley. But they were planning to harm me. So I sent messages to them saying, I'm doing a great work and cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it to go down to you? 4 times they sent me the same proposal, and I gave them the same reply. In other words, why should I stop? In other words, what from Nehemiah's perspective, what advantage, what is the benefit of me coming to talk to you? Talk to you for what? That is the first thing. Keep this in mind. Nehemiah had permission, right? He was sent by God. He was granted a decree by the king himself. So why talk to these guys, Salabah? All right, verse 5. Salabas sent me this same message the 5th time by his aide, who had an open letter in his hand. In it was written, it is reported among the nations, and Geshem agrees that you and the Jews plan to rebel. This is the reason you are building the wall. According to these reports, you are to become their king, and have even set up the prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim on your behalf. This is a king in Judah. These rumors will be heard by the king, so come, let us confer together. In other words, think about this. You better come talk to us. Now, here's the thing. Rumors, right? And in this case, this wasn't even rumors. This was something they made up. Again, why should they respond? And I think there's some wisdom here about sometimes how we respond to people. Somebody make an accusation against us, we immediately want to respond. Nehemiah's thing was, I ain't got time to respond. I'm going to keep my focus. And that is the key, I think. I put it like this. You respond when you need to respond. In this case, why should he respond to these guys? Verse 8. Then I replied to them, there is nothing to these rumors you are spreading. You are inventing them in your own mind, for they were all trying to intimidate us, saying they will become discouraged in the work, and it will never be finished. But now my God strengthened me. I think the wisdom here is, especially for us as believers, where our strength comes from. That we don't need to seek validation from people. And then there will be times when you will defend yourself. Speak up for yourself. Ask God for the wisdom when you should do that. If it's just responding to rumors, insults, gossip, innuendos, that's foolish. If they had taken this all the way to the king, remember in Ezra they sent letters to the king saying to the king, hey, these people that are building this temple, they're not going to pay taxes. They're going to set up a different government. They're going to rebel against you. Um, Now, even then, Ezra and them did not have to respond to the king. You know why? Because the king had already given them the decree. But sometimes we have to respond in those cases. But ask God for wisdom when you have to. But don't do it out of your fleshly desire to respond. Like, I ain't gonna have nobody talking about me, lying on me, slandering me, yada yada yada. Keep your focus on the purpose. That's what Nehemiah was doing. Like, I ain't got time to come with your foolishness. Why would I come down and talk with you? Period. Verse 10. I went to the house of Shimei, son of Delai, son of Mehetabel, who was restricted to his house. Now, we don't know why he was restricted. And again, forgive my butchering of these pronunciations. He said, this is, so I'm trying to think, okay, I went to the house of Shimei, son of Delai, son of Mehetabel, who was restricted to his house. He said, let us meet at the house of God inside the temple. Let us shut the doors, the temple doors, because they are coming to kill you. They are coming to kill you tonight. So now they're trying to install fear. Okay? False fears. Okay? Verse 11, but I said, should a man like me run away? How can I enter the temple and live? I will not go. And I realized God had not sent them because of the prophecy he spoke against me. Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. He was hired so that I would be intimidated, do as he suggested, sin, and get a bad reputation in order that they could discredit me. In other words, if he ran to the to the temple and hide. I'm amazed at these guys, right? That they're spending so much time and energy, right? But notice how, if you think about this here, how they're coming. Let us meet at the house of God. Verse 14, my God, remember Tobiah and Sanballat for what they have done, and also Noadiah, the prophetess, and the other prophets who wanted to intimidate me. Now, notice that these people coming in the name of the Lord. This is a woman. The prophetess Noadiah. Okay, and notice if they had listened. Right, think about that. Notice if they had listened. In other words, the work wouldn't have been done. Their sole purpose was to stop the work, stop the building. Now, we don't know why. To me, other than, the enemy, the spiritual enemy, Satan, planted in their hearts, in their mind. But the tactics. Verse 15. The wall was completed in 52 days, and on the 25th day of the month, Elul, when our enemies heard this, all the surrounding nations were intimidated and lost their confidence, for they realized that this task had been accomplished by our God. Now, it's kind of interesting because in all of what they attempted to do, they failed. Even enlisting false prophets and prophetess, they failed. Verse 17, during those days, the nobles of Judah sent many letters to Tobiah, and Tobiah's letters came to them. For many in Judah were bound by oath to him, since he was son-in-law of Shechaniah, son of Eri, and his son Jehonani, had married the daughters of Meshullam and Berechiah. These nobles kept mentioning Tobiah's good deeds to me, and they reported my words to him, and Tobiah sent letters to intimidate me. So, not to me, not a surprise, because think about this. We have it today. Think about all the false. Again, I'm so tempted to get into it. I'm not. But think about all of the false preachers today. One of the things that always amazed me, how relevant, the Word of God is. In other words, not the very situation, but the principle behind what we can extract from this exists to this very day. Chapter 7. So they completed the wall. The wall is finished now. So all of the enemies now are like, Verse 7 says, when the wall had been rebuilt, and I had the doors installed, the gatekeepers, singers, and Levites were appointed. And I put my brother Hananiah in charge of Jerusalem, along with Hananiah, commanders of the fortress, because he was a faithful man who feared God more than most. And I said to them, do not open the gates of Jerusalem until the sun is hot, and let the doors be shut and securely fastened while the guards are on duty. Station the citizens of Jerusalem as guards, and some of their posts, and some at their homes. He said the city was large and spacious, but there were few people in it, and no houses had been built yet. Then my God put it in my mind to assemble the nobles and the officials and the people to be registered by genealogy. And I found the genealogy records of those who came back first, and I found the following written in it. These are the people of the province who went up among the captive exiles deported by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Each of them returned to Jerusalem and Judah, to his own town. They came with Zerubbabel, Jeshua, Nehemiah, Azariah, Remiah, Nehemiah, Mordecai. Now remember that. I'm going to come back to that. Belshan, Mispereth, Bigvai, Nehum, and Benai. Okay. I am not going to read all of these names here as to take you through the torture of me butchering them. I do want to point out, as they're establishing again, now the walls of the city were built, the temple had been restored. Now it's time to set up government. It's now to set up the kind of civil way that the city is going to run. Note that it said that the city was spacious. Now that appealed to me. Okay, I live in a big city, and but Jerusalem, when you think about the city of Jerusalem itself, before the exile, when we think about big cities, okay, so in America we have our metropolitan areas. So you have New York, Chicago, L.A., Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, all these kind of big cities. You got the cities, and then you got the surrounding areas, the suburb areas, the metropolitan areas. Jerusalem wasn't probably, maybe could have had 100,000 people in it at its most. Okay, not a lot of cities were metropolitan areas that we know of. Okay, however, so when the exiles came back, understand, remember only 50,000 of them came back at most. We're going to see that in these numbers here. And And that's why they said that the city, they're trying to think of how can we kind of occupy the city, because a lot of the people when they came back also moved outside of the city as well. In other words, they needed to almost had a repopulation of Israel. What is interesting is that the vast majority of Jews were still living in all of the areas, the far reach areas of the Median Persians, starting with Babylon, the Median Persians, then the Grecian kingdom, then the Roman kingdom. And this is why, for example, you see the later on what would become the emergence of the synagogue, because the synagogue were these places where the Jews who did not live in traveling distance, right, short traveling distance of Jerusalem, they would kind of meet there. It's just interesting to see, again, just a fraction of the people now that just come back into Israel at this point. Now, when you see this list of names, Jerubbaal, Nehemiah, we don't know if Nehemiah here is the same, that they didn't mention his last name. The term Mordecai is an interesting name here. We'll see him in Esther. All right, now again, all of these names, this is the list of the people that came back when Cyrus gave the decree to return. And so when you look at these numbers here, again, you look at all these numbers, you get down, and these are the people that came, these are the names. You get down to, where are we at? All of these names here. First of all, you got people, and then notice priests, the temple servants, and then Solomon's, the descendants of Solomon's servants. We saw this, by the way, in Ezra, this name here. So look at verse 61, very interesting here. The following are those who came from Temelah, and then Tehashara, Cherub, and Immer, but were unable to prove that their family and ancestors were Israelites. Remember, I told you how the genealogies were extremely important. So these people couldn't prove that they were actual Israelites by descendants, by genealogies. Okay. Notice that Deliah descendants in Tobias. Now, I don't know if this is the same Tobias that's been the enemy and the resistance of the Jews rebuilding. Then it says, and from the priests, descendants of Hobiah, descendants of Hokai, and descendants of Barzillai, who had taken a wife from the daughters of Barzillai, the Gilead, and it was called by their name. They searched for their entire genealogy records, but they could not be found, so they were disqualified from the priesthood. Then the governor ordered them not to eat the most holy things until there was a priest who could consult the Urim and the Thummim. The Urim and Thummim was a little kind of device where they would have to try to consult God. One of the ways that God would kind of give sign to the people, to the priests. And then verse 66, it says the whole combined assembly numbered 42,000 people here, 42,000 people. And then as you see, you see a list of the whole combined numbered, not including their 7,337 male and female slaves. Okay, and then it says, as well as the 245 male and female singers, and then the horses and mules and donkeys. Okay, and then it says some of the family leaders gave to the project. The governors gave 1,000 gold coins, 50 bowls, 530 priestly garments to the treasury. Some of the family leaders gave 20,000 coins, 22,000 silver minus to the treasury and the projects, and the rest the people gave 20,000 gold coins, 2,000 silver minus, 67 priestly garments. So the priests and Levites, gatekeepers, temple singers, some of the people, temple servants, and all of Israel settled in their towns. Okay, and then when the 7th month came, and the Israelites had settled in their towns. Now we'll come back to this because this is going to be a footnote here later on. We'll get back to that. So as I said, partly the settling of the people, and then notice it said they're going to start settling out in their in their towns. In the next chapter, we'll get into, again, the public reading, civil kind of, how they're going to set up the civil communities, the civil laws and stuff like that. Okay, guys, don't forget to like and share this video. Subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button, and I will see you in the next study.